Welcome to the Think Small podcast, hypergrowth for small businesses. So, what's slowing you down?
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Offshore Diaries. I'm Melissa, your podcast host for today. And with me is Jean Bohensky, CEO of Archer's Contact Solutions. We're here today in their office here in Dasmariñas, Cavite. So if you remember Jean, he did the very first podcast episode with Paolo and Teo. So Jean, I watched that first episode and I found your answers very insightful. You know a lot about Filipino work culture, given of your years of experience here. But for the sake of our podcast guests, kindly introduce yourself and tell us a bit about how this VA agency in the Philippines came to be.
Well, I guess it all started when I decided to buy a business coaching practice 10 years ago. I bought the Alternative Board and I coach business owners in New Jersey, the Alternative Board of Northern New Jersey. And one of the things I learned quickly is that I needed someone to help me make calls to set appointments for business owners. At that point, I didn't know anything about the Philippines. I went and looked online at a website called outbounders.com. I hired somebody. The first person I hired, she had a thick accent, but it was very inexpensive, and she made all kinds of appointments for me.
Oh, was she from the Philippines?
She was also from the Philippines. Yeah, so she did a great job, although very, very unreliable, very difficult to work with. So I decided that I was going to try to find somebody, the next level higher, right? And so the next person I hired, which was Virginia, my now partner, I hired her on Outbounders. I remember listening to, the little recording, because on Outbounders, they have to post recordings of themselves.
Oh, by the way, what year was this?
This was 9 years ago.
9
right?
years
so,
ago.
So, there's, hi, I'm Virginia. The reason you should hire me is, I'm great at my job. They have a little script that they say so that you can get an idea of their English. I thought she had great English. And I also decided at the time that I was going to be a little different. I wanted to get to know this person, right? I wanted to have a relationship with this person because when you're selling business coaching, you're really selling a relationship with somebody else. So the person has to know me. And so, as fate would have it, we got along really well. And we just enjoyed working with each other. And for many years, that's what we did. Over time, I discovered outsourcing because I wanted to make sure she always worked for me and I didn't have enough work for her. So I started outsourcing her to my clients. And then from there, we needed more people. She knew people in the area because she was in the industry. We found more people to do outsourcing work. Then we started doing lead generation programs. And it was 2.5 years ago, we were up to about 13 people. And for the first time, I came out and flew out to the Philippines to get to know everybody because I'd never been here before. And I just wanted to see what that was like. What are the people like? Because I didn't know anything about that. I came and I fell in love with the place. I fell in love with the people and everyone that was working with Virginia. I realized that we could really make a serious business out of that. And that's when we decided to start a real office. And the reason we were starting an office is because of all the challenges we had managing our agents remotely, right? We had nothing but trouble, right? They would be good for a couple of months, then they'd ghost us, they'd lie to us, they'd give us false reports. We even had one agent outsource her own calling. That was really funny.
Wow, her own calling.
Her own calling. She hired somebody to make the calls for her and then billed us. And all kinds of crazy stories. And we realized that if we ever wanted to take this on to the next level, we would have to change what we're doing.
Let me just pause a bit there. When you hired Virginia, was she already working as a VA? Was she familiar with remote work that time? Or were you also her first client back then as well?
No, she did a lot of VA work. She did a lot of things. She had experience as a call center manager, had experience as a VA. I think it was just one of those situations. I think she had her profile up. I'm not sure whether that was a full-time thing for her, but over time, because we got to know each other so well, I wanted to have her full-time, and that's what I decided to do early on.
Yeah, I find that actually a very fun, like amazing story about how like a VA gets hired for one role, but they have so much potential and so much proactiveness that they actually evolve with the business needs as well. So she started out like doing calls, and then here you are like running this business with her. So that's pretty amazing.
That's right. I mean, it just goes to show you how much potential we all have as people, right? We can do a lot of things, especially if we have those dreams and we push each other. I mean, it's kind of what I do as a business coach. You help people and coach them to take their own business, their own lives to the next level.
So you mentioned the need for a physical office in the Philippines to manage the people, the VAs that were working, and how like a huge concern in the Philippine VA industry is the reliability and consistency of work. Like I personally know people who outsource, who take on multiple clients and they also outsource their work, and I'm not sure the clients know about that. So that really is a big problem. So how does a VA agency address and mitigate those risks on the side of foreign clients so that they get quality work and what they pay for?
It's a good question. It really depends on what your expectations for the roles are. A lot of times, VAs are in the work for a couple of months and they're okay with that, right? And they're always bumping around from one client to the next, never really satisfying the clients, right? And you can do that. But if you're an agency and your primary role and job is to satisfy your clients, and for us, what does that mean? That means that we want them to be with us for years, not just a few months. And so when you want a client for a couple of years, you have to be able to guarantee the results and actually live up to what you promise, right? So a lot of people don't do that. I think also the VAs who do that don't realize that they're not doing best by their clients. You know, clients get frustrated with that because if they have to train somebody every couple months or they find a good VA and then the VA leaves and there's no time for the one to train the other one, it's a hassle. And a lot of the business owners I've met said, yeah, I tried it once. It didn't work. I'm not doing it again.
Oh no, the reputation.
Right. So this is something that anybody who's watching this episode has to know, that poor performance of VAs hurts the industry, right? Because that's the reputation that people get. And people, once they get that bad reputation, they don't want to try it again because it's too much work.
I absolutely agree with that. And one of the conversations I had with Paulo, since we did also a few episodes, I introduced him to the Reddit community. Like, you know, as freelancers, as remote workers, we don't work in an office. So really our space to talk about our experiences at work is like on online communities, right? So I introduced him to some Reddit communities of Filipino freelancers and the discussions and the challenges they face in the industry. And one of the realizations that Paulo and I had is that the VA industry is so large and there are so many different people there. Some people are fresh graduates who don't want an in-person job, like in the office, or they don't want to commute. Everyone's here for a different reason. Some people just urgently need money, right? And some people, they have an established career. Like some people are like engineers, accountants, teachers, and they realize, I do want a career shift. So let's talk a bit about the young professionals, I guess, who are entering the VA industry. So how does a VA agency help them with
Well,
their
I think the
jobs?
biggest thing that we do is we give them training.
Mhm.
We do hire some people out of college if they pass all of our entrance requirements, and we train them and help them. And that's one of the reasons you have an office, because you have staff that can coach them, watch them, and train them on the software, train them on what the expectations of the clients are. Sometimes it's a risk, right? If you hire people with no experience, I think a couple times we hired people that were really young and they just weren't mature enough to handle the roles. Um, I say this because, you know, in people grow up a lot faster here in the Philippines. Um, I would say that if you're 21 here, that's equivalent to being like 27 in the United States. So a lot of times our clients, when they have VAs that are 21, 22, they think they're really in their late 20s from the way they handle themselves and the way they approach their work, which is why I always say that, you know, we don't really want to tell everyone what our age is, because in America, people that are that young don't have a good reputation of working very hard, right? So a lot of people in America are not going to hire anyone without 4 or 5 or 6 years of experience because they're just not able to do the work. But we take every type of person. We'll take someone who is talented that's out of college. We'll take people that are looking to make a career change. If they have the right personality and they have the right technical skills and they can learn and they're motivated to be a VA and proactively as a VA, then it's really for me as someone who does a lot of personality assessments. It's really based on that more than anything else. It's really the personality and whether the person is adaptable and how fast they can learn.
Let's talk about assessments a bit. Paula and I also had this interesting conversation of how important it is to have someone who's experienced. He firmly believes, from our conversations in the previous episode, that fresh graduates shouldn't start being a VA right away. They need that in-office mentorship. They need that socialization experience to really build that professionalism before they enter the VA industry. And he also believes that having a VA agency that somehow sets a standard or somehow provides some kind of guidance of how to communicate or how to act around how to handle like simple things as phone calls and emails, that helps set the bar in the VA industry, because you get such a mixed bag of people, right? Like anyone can apply to a job posting, but you don't really know their qualifications and how they are as a person. So how do the assessments in Archers help set the standard or check the quality of VAs?
Well, we look for a couple of things most people don't look for. So one of them is the ability for the person to work autonomously and figure out things for themselves. If they have that component, you can rely on their ability to adapt to the role faster, right? So that's an important component. And if they're just out of college, some of them have work experience. Some of them have worked in the BPO or have other experience, and sometimes that experience is valuable. I agree that you need to have people with some experience. People without any or that are really green don't work out too well. That's true. But the assessments are important to find the people that will naturally adapt and learn. And I think that's as important as anything else.
Yeah, definitely the proactiveness and also the adaptability. It's not a passive role, right? Like being a VA, because I think there's also this misconception, oh, you're working from home, this must be a really easy job just because you're in front of the computer. Or there are also these misconceptions that being a VA is just entry level work, or it's really easy work. What are your thoughts on that?
It isn't at all. Most of the business owners that want a VA really want an administrative assistant. They actually even want a partner. They want someone that's going to think for them, remind them when they need to do stuff, manage their affairs, manage their inbox. It's actually a pretty serious role. And it's not at all like a BPO role where, you're just handed a bunch of policies, procedures, and scripts, and you're just following a playbook. That's the same playbook that the other 100 people in the office are doing. That's not what we do at all here. Most of our people are working one-to-one with a client, or they have a specific job at a client where they actually have a title like social media manager or inside sales or CRM manager, and they're actually doing a full-time job for that company. And those are serious roles, right? So, because our clients expect people to work as well here as they would in the US, right? And with any type of job like that, you require the mental engagement of the agent. They have to be into it. They have to want to learn, want to serve, want to figure it out. There are definitely ways to measure this, right? People who are very low on the autonomy scale, they wait until they're told. They're afraid to ask questions when they have a problem. They don't say anything when they have no work to do, right? They're very passive in the roles. And that doesn't really work out too well, right? Our clients don't, they expect someone to be more engaged than that.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of engagement, I remember one of the creative ways I pitched my potential as a VA was I could be your right hand or your second brain. So I'll gladly remember things for you. I'll gladly follow your thought process, and at the same time, I'll keep a record of everything you said and remind you of things. And you can ask me for my opinion only if it's solicited. So I think I really agree with the need to be engaging and also just to really be a partner and support your client and the kind of work they do. So you mentioned something about BPO. I'm actually from the province, Romblon province, and there's this conception, this thought in our province that when you work in Manila, you work for a BPO. You just work in an office, you have a headset, and you follow a script. That's the common notion of outsourcing, at least from where I'm from. No one really knows what a VA is, and I actually have a really hard time explaining to my friends in the province what I do. But how would you again differentiate BPO work from VA work?
So BPO is exactly what it says. It's business process outsourcing. That means there are processes that are very tightly defined with what you're supposed to do in those processes, and they're outsourced to many people, maybe 100 at a time, maybe 50, and they're all doing the exact same job. They're not allowed to think for themselves. They're not allowed to deviate from the script. They have very specific instructions of what they are allowed to do and allowed to say, which is really the total opposite of what we do here. A VA requires the person to be engaged with the business owner, and each business owner is different. I mean, every role is different, every job is different, and we don't even know what they're going to want the VAs to do, right? And a lot of times, our clients, it's the first time they've ever hired a VA, and so we have to teach them how to use a VA. So it's like there's another layer to this. It's like in order to be really good at this, we've got to teach our clients how to use a VA, and our clients at the same time want us to tell them. So they want the VA to help them with things. Now, some of it's demographics. A lot of the business owners that we're working with are all over 50, right? So they're not the most tech savvy. They don't know how to use the CRM tools, presentation tools, maybe, the AI tools. They don't use them. They're going to expect their VA to show them how to do that, right? So it's really a different balance, right? If you think about a business process outsourcing, the VA isn't hired for anything other than just to follow these directions, right? I mean, for BPO. Well, our VAs, they're hired to engage and help the business owners take their business to the next level, which is a much more intensive and challenging role.
I want to just say that I really appreciate what you've mentioned, that you guys also help your clients figure out what they need a VA for and how to really maximize working with their VAs, and also just figuring out things like what to ask, or the entire process. I see that there are a lot of gaps here that your agency and your expertise is filling. I personally never worked for a VA agency before. I started out as a communications person. I started out freelancing, and there were a lot of things I had to learn the hard way. I also had clients who initially hired me for one thing, and then they kind of didn't really know what they wanted me to do, and I also didn't really know what they wanted me to do. So I really see the value that your business is offering here to both clients and VAs.
Yeah, it works both ways. We have to train both sides, right?
When I first started out in the VA industry, I would describe it as a very lonely and confusing space to navigate, I guess. And having people who are really experts in being the bridge between clients and VAs, that's very, you can ask someone for help or advice, or if you have questions. And I think that's very valuable. You mentioned diversity and how you guys have a lot of different clients and a lot of different VAs that go beyond administrative work. They're actually professionals with their own expertise, right? Could you describe some of the professionals or the expertise from the Archers team, and also talk a bit about the different kind of clients you guys serve?
Also, from the side of the VAs, we have a wide range, right? We have social media managers, people that can do video editing, that can do web design, they can do graphic design, they can do writing. They manage people's email inboxes. They're CRM specialists doing lead generation and taking care of people's sales organizations. We have people doing email and chat support. We have people doing their assistants in medical offices. We have a lot of people in sales and lead generation working for business coaches. We have a medical device company with a large number of actual roles that they have, specific job titles like executive assistant or social media manager or CRM manager or bookkeeper. We also do bookkeeping. So really it runs the gamut of what the clients need. And we try to get the people to match up with what their needs are, not only from the skills match, but also the personality match. From the client side, like I said, we have all kinds of clients, small business owners, small companies, solopreneurs, business coaches. There's a lot of business coaches from me because I'm in that community in the United States from my franchise. And we also get a lot of referrals from other business coaches that have clients that need VAs. And so they come to us because they know we can take care of them.
That's a wonderful reputation to have, and referrals are incredibly valuable. That shows that your clients are satisfied, that they trust enough to refer them to others. So how many clients do you guys have at the moment?
I think we're about 80. We have a head count of about 110. We're looking to grow, obviously, much bigger than this. But really, we're only 2 years old, so it's a good start.
It is a wonderful start. I didn't know Archers was that young. Out of curiosity, why is it called Archers?
Well, Archers is a long-time business name that I've used. Archery it's a skill, right? It takes skill and energy and power, to be an archer and also to hit the target, right? It's about hitting the targets and hitting goals, which is what we do, right? We hit goals for our clients, it just makes sense to have a company name that kind of fits what we do and what everyone knows we're about, right? Like we hit targets, we hit expectations, we perform as expected.
Wonderful. So how can foreign clients find Archers?
In terms of for employees or for just clients.
I think let's start with clients first. Say I'm an executive listening to this podcast. I found it on YouTube. I have a business and I kind of want to try this offshoring thing out. You guys seem to have like a wide gamut, like a diverse set of VAs. How do I contact you?
On our website, we have book a discovery call, and then there's a form to fill out with a little bit about you and what you need. And then that goes directly to book with one of our people in our sales department. And we do a discovery call. And in that discovery call, what we'll do is really get an understanding of what you need that person to do, right? And we record those calls and make sure we get transcripts to really understand all the requirements, because you miss stuff if you're just taking notes. And then when we write a proposal, we make sure that it matches everything that was said in that call to us, right? That's also kind of one of our secrets.
Okay, so discovery call. Is there a limit to is there a minimum or maximum amount of VAs that a client has to hire, or can they go like part-time?
Just one. We like full-time VAs better than part-time. We have some part-time VAs, but in our experience, the full-timers work out better. The reason is we hire them all as full-time VAs. So if they are part-time, they have to get another client, either in the morning or the afternoon. And my experience is that when a VA has two clients, they split their concentration. It's not the same as having just one client. And the other thing is that it's a little risky because if one of those clients wants that VA full-time, we're obligated to give that VA to the person full-time, and then the other one has to get another VA. So we try to encourage full-time work. It's more than double, right? I would say that from what you get out of a full-time VA, it's more than double as a part-time VA, even though it's double the time, because of the concentration and the full attention you're getting. You're getting much more.
Definitely. I can also imagine it's also the learning curve is less because like you don't have to communicate to two very different people. You can just communicate to your one full-time VA, get to know them better, and they get to know your business better and how everything operates. One of the things that it's kind of romanticized, I guess, in the freelancing industry or the VA industry is like juggling multiple clients and like earning a lot. But I can definitely attest that the headspace you need to focus on each of your clients and then their needs and it's always different. So the more clients you're juggling, the more different things you have to worry about in a day. So
Well, I mean, that works for some people. I'm sure that it works for a certain type of work that you do. And if you have a lot of clients, you become your own agency and you can outsource to work to other people. If you have a very narrow band of what you're doing, you could certainly do that because you end up running your own VA agency, right? Um, but in terms of what we try to provide, what our clients want, right, are really full-time positions and partnership-based VAs where they're really engaged with the clients. That's a little bit different.
So, since you've been in the VA industry a while now, what can you say about it? Like, are there any challenges, anything that has to be addressed for it to improve?
I think as it gets more mature, you're going to see more companies like us address the reliability and the consistency. That's why I think we're on the leading edge in the business, because clients are going to demand that VAs are going to be reliable, right? Um, they're not going to want to have VAs that only work out for a couple of months. On the side here, VAs have to know that you can't really do that I mean, you're doing a disservice to the industry when you're doing that. The main driver is demographics. In the United States, you have an aging workforce. A lot of business owners are over 50. They can't afford to hire someone locally, or the people are not available. So in order for them to grow, they're going to need to hire people overseas because the people locally just don't exist. You can't hire people that aren't there.
Could you like kind of elaborate when you say that? To tell me more about that.
From the standpoint of demographics, from the amount of people being born and young people, let's just say in the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha, there's less of them. There's not enough of them to take over all the jobs that the baby boomers and the Gen Xers are leaving behind, right? And then a lot of them don't want to do that work, especially entry-level work, because it's too expensive to hire someone there. So there's going to be a whole bunch of work that's going to need to be outsourced. And as this industry matures, you're going to see more companies like us, I believe, formalize this, right? Where you have better processes, better guarantees. You know which type of people to hire. You know how to train them. You know how to sell them. And so I think that's where we are now. We're in that maturity phase. I mean, you're also in a heavy growth phase, because I remember reading somewhere that in the Philippines, remote workers is a compound annual growth rate of something like 12% that is expected in the next 5 years. Now, I think there's 3 or 4 million people working in that. Now, that means 400,000 people per year that this is going to grow in the next 5 years. That's 2 million people that are going to come into this industry. That's a lot of workers, right? So there's a lot of opportunity for growth in this business, and to provide a better service and better outcomes for clients in the United States. That's what I see long term as a vision as a CEO.
Definitely. Yeah, it's a very exciting time, and you guys are doing very important work, especially with the influx of all these people who want to become VAs. There's definitely a need for people to identify gaps and also establish some sort of process. Especially in the Philippines, it's not as regulated yet. They're still figuring out how to like label this correctly, how to study the VA industry, since it's also relatively new.
Sure, right now it's really on the VAs themselves, right, to make sure they have the proper training, and that they're properly engaged in this work, and that they understand the expectations of the clients. It's not an easy job, right? But it is exciting because they're going to get clients. They're going to have a window into a world they wouldn't otherwise have a window into. So, they're going to learn a lot, and there's a lot of personal growth for that. At a company, and we can also give them personal growth, because they can move on to either other clients, they can get promoted in the company, they can become team leaders, right? As the company grows, you also have more spots for managers, more spots for people to move forward in their career, and that's also what we offer, right? So that people can get a lot of personal fulfillment from the work, and just do better in their own lives. We also try to pay competitively. We want to make sure that people are paid fairly and well, for what we can afford, and I think we're doing that. So it's good on all fronts.
It was lovely getting to know you and the work Archers does. I'm so excited to interview some of your VAs next, and our viewers will see this in future episodes. Too, we can really delve into their personal stories and how did they end up working as VAs. That's one of the things I love about this industry. Everyone comes from a different background. They're all here for a different reason, and there's so much growth. So this was a fantastic episode, Jean. Yeah, to our viewers, thank you so much for listening. And if you need VAs, you know where to go. All right. Thank you so much, Jean.
Welcome to the Think Small podcast, hypergrowth for small businesses. So, what's slowing you down?